So now we go to Dr. Frobish's portion, and I'll have a little bit to say at the very end.
Thank you. Okay, so what did we do? I know that's a lot of complicated philosophical jargon, but it's important because whenever you are making the argument the literature is wrong, you can't just go out and say that. The literature is wrong. Everybody's wrong. You've got to ground that argument in the theory. And that's why I brought in Dr. Sadler to help me ground that in Aristotelian theory and ethical theory, which will help our argument, right? We chose basically a theory to data to theory approach in a way, right? We looked at the theory and to see what they said about flaming. In our opinion, they had it all wrong. Well, let's look at the data to confirm that. So we looked at the data with the aim to, revise the theory, right? So one of the things that I did is I examined logs of Internet Relay Chat communities. I'll get more into Internet Relay Chat here in a second, but I took 24-hour logs of the discussions. I didn't look at them while they were going on. I just hit save, and I walked off, and then I looked at it later. Some of the communities I looked at, these were rich, persistent communities. By that I mean these are communities that have been around for a long time. They're rich, meaning that the discussions are deep. Right? These are people that know each other really well. It's not just surface-level details that they know about each other. You know, these are rich, deep information they know about each other. So I looked at handicraft support group, depression support group, Alcoholics Anonymous support group, and some political groups. Some of these have been around, like I said, for 20-plus years. Right? So these are very persistent communities. And then I looked at the types of responses that were going on. Right? So, Internet Relay Chat, what is it? Developed in 1988, 22 years ago, right? It's available to every single person in this room, either Mac or PC. The top 100 networks serve more than 500,000 users at any given time. It's huge, right? It's big. And IRC operates hundreds of thousands of channels, operating with roughly 1,500 servers worldwide. So it's a big thing. That's what it looks like when you're using this particular software to access it. This is called Merc. You can see Merc right up here at the top. These are the different channels. This person is on, 9, 10 different chat rooms at the same time. And whenever there's a new response, that particular chat room glows red. And so you click on this one to see what new thing has been said. In this particular room, this is family chat. Right? He's on the family chat channel. These are the people in the room. These are normal people. These are people with controls. They can kick people out and so forth. And then, of course, here is the chat, basically, the ongoing chat. So this is basically what I saved. 24 hours worth of material in each of these chat rooms that I talked about. So let's stare at the flames a little bit, right? Hopefully we won't go crazy staring at the fires, but that's what I looked for. I looked for the hostility, and I coded those particular exchanges. Now, like I said, there are some offensive words here, but that's the way flaming works. Sometimes your name by itself can be a type of flame. Right? In this case, you see the name, and immediately this person was kicked. Thank you for flying, politics, airlines, have a nice landing. That was the name of the chat room, was politics. And somebody you could see, after the person was kicked out, somebody said, thank you. Right? Just the name itself was enough to get that person kicked. The name itself can be a type of flame. The walkout. In this case, this person came in, said, we need to kill all the Jews. This person joined them. Of course, this person whose nickname was Jewish One. Got to go. Not even going to engage. There's no point. I'm just going to walk out. Right? So that's an engagement strategy, right? The silent treatment. A couple of people working together, trying to, two trolls in a way, right? They're both trying to rile the people in the audience. Nobody responded. They were smart enough not to respond. They never said another word about those two issues, right? If you don't give them any fuel for the fire, right, the fire is going to go out. Sometimes you can attack the facts, use rationality, use logos, what Dr. Sadler was talking about, right? Attack the facts, use your logic, use your evidence. In this case, they're talking about how lesbians or predators are going to go kill or kidnap your kids, protect your children. And this person finally says 90% of child molesters are straight, right? Those are the numbers. And the discussion ended. Attack the facts. Luckily, that ended that particular one. Attack the attitudes. Right? Say, hey, that attitude's not a good one. At the very end, this person's saying, please don't patronize.
So there we have ethos.
Ethos, yeah. Meet ethos. And that worked. You know, this person was saying, hey, Cassidy, get a dictionary, look up the word hypocrite. So please don't patronize me. You know? And that seemed to work in that particular case. The wit hit, using humor. I came up with these titles. You can blame me. Again, somewhere in that previous conversation, somebody said this, those damn lesbians, that's why they wear combat boots, they're predators. And this person took an action. Hands are a wooden wedge, here, stick this in your brain, try to open it up a little bit. Try a little humor, right? Diffuse the situation. And in that particular case, that was enough. They gang up, people can gang together to protect the community. You can see the very offensive kind of one-liner here, and then Lady Broker and Eagle both joined in here. Astro, were you not aware of the channel rules? Right, there were rules in this particular chat room which require language to be kept clean. And Eagle continued later. They both have already been banned and kicked from a few of the channels. This is getting recorded, sent to the IRC cops. They will be dealt with. And you can see here, hey, this channel sucks. Should we leave? Scared them. Right? And then the reflame, which is where we're picking it up at. Of course, there's, again, starts with a very offensive sort of comment here, trying to make a really ill-formed joke. And you can see the ones in bold, that's where people are trying to flame back, trying to shame, trying to embarrass, trying to out-flame the flamer. Right? Of course, they're using cussing, the racist, racism disgusting, no class, he's a scumbag, right? And eventually he leaves the room. Right? That's what we're arguing. If you've tried all other methodologies, if you've tried all other reasonable, emotional appeals, nothing else is working, tried humor, tried silence, it flames all you got, and that works, it's an ethical case. It's an ethical action because it protects the community. So let's just discuss this a little bit. I want to add a caveat here that flaming is not the ideal. Right? I'm not encouraging you to go out there and flame the flamers, right? And to engage the flamers. But if you're in a community and you want to protect that community, where the community is more important than the individuals themselves, if flaming works, then we're all for it, right? And that's kind of what we're arguing. We're saying the literature needs to update itself and make that claim. It's another tool in the rhetorical toolbox, in other words, right? You have logos, pathos, ethos. Now you have flaming as another way to persuade. Right? So I'm going to finish it up with Dr. Sadler here.
Here, you want to use this?
Sure.
Okay, so one thing that we're going to tie the paper in with is a much broader issue, not so much in rhetoric, but in moral philosophy and in policy. And the broader issue is how to deal with unjust and harmful aggression, which is a ubiquitous issue. It's been something that's with us from the beginning of time and will probably always be an issue. So from an Aristotelian perspective, we can distinguish between the motives and the quality of the act. And I think that's a very valuable set of distinctions to make. Some moral theories simply say, well, this act is automatically bad, automatically wrong. They would treat flaming in any case, as Dr. Frobish has pointed out, the literature often does, as simply wrong. We're making the case that it really depends on the motives and the quality of the act. Another thing to think about with this, we all have a sort of natural human response to seeing aggression. Or there's a range of it. You can withdraw, you can deplore it, you can jump in, get involved yourself. I think that some of these natural responses are actually good clues to what we ought to do. So moral philosophy, instead of simply trying to sanitize all this, should actually take a close look at it and start digging in and figuring out when is this good, when is this bad. A full, robust ethical response to violence, to aggression, to coercion is always going to require some sort of aggression on at least somebody's part. There are ethics out there of nonviolence. those are very limited in what they can actually accomplish. Gandhi was very clear when he talked about using nonviolence with the British, that if he tried to do that with the Nazis or with Attila the Hun, it would have been ineffective. There are many cases in which using nonviolence or even a very reduced amount of aggression can actually play right into the aggressor's strategy or desires. There's a danger with this, though. There's a danger of justifying the use of aggression, sort of indiscriminately. So I think that what we need, what we can get from the Aristotelian context, what Aristotle brings to the table with this, is framing things not in terms of the act alone, but in terms of two sets of things. The goods or the values involved. Aristotle, if you actually go through and you read his text, you find him exploring the nature of the different kinds of goods and the nature of bads that we encounter in human life. And how do we measure those against each other? How do we determine which ones are worth saving and which ones are worth sacrificing? So that's important. And then character and context. I think we need to evaluate these things not just in terms of fighting is good, fighting is bad, aggression is good, aggression is bad, but in terms of the character that's revealed in particular acts, in contexts. And I have some examples where the ethics of violence has been more clearly worked out. I don't think there's much work done in this area. So I think actually we're opening the door to some quite interesting further studies. Ethics of policing and corrections. There's quite a good literature out there on the ethics of using coercion, punishment, violence against those who themselves are engaging in aggression and would otherwise threaten the fabric of society or threaten individuals, destroy the sorts of goods that we want preserved. Another area in which a lot of literature has been generated, especially in the last 10 years because of the war that we've been involved in, is just war ethics. And that goes all the way back to the time of the Greeks, those sorts of debates. And I think that the sort of literature that we're going to be working on here will probably have a lot in common with those sorts of studies. So I think we have a lot of room for expanding this after we focus on this one small thing of flaming to talk about verbal aggression in general in the Internet.
So just as a summary, we started by talking about the subject of flaming, just a little bit, defined the terms, looked at various theories to help support our argument. We talked about the methodology and what I discovered as we looked at these logs. So I'd like to open it up to you guys to see what kind of questions you may have about this subject, and if you have any advice or recommendations, or if you have examples to share with us, we can include in our paper. But I think that's the one weakness that we need to bolster up before we move forward is we need more examples. Right. I need more logs. I need more flames.
So we want all of you to flame some people and then give us records of those?
No, don't be trolls. So questions? Yes. And all the hard questions, I'm going to do for Dr. Sadler. By the way, I wore red just for this purpose. You're wearing red underwear, right?
No, I'm wearing the blue.
Okay.
I actually want to thank you for such a good presentation. Systematic work, and I understand such a difficult topic. Studying this topic. But I am totally ignorant about all of these languages. Is that age difference? Is this because I didn't know about all of this.
Right.
Until you talked to me.
Right. I mean, people are hostile to each other face to face. I think the online environment just explodes.
And that's where Aristotle comes. That Aristotle's ideas and theories which have applied to the arguments and discussions that we have in their regular day. But what about something like Iraq War? Saddam Hussein, is he flaming? Was he flaming? Or did he fight in that? Would that be just war?
Again, I'll move the hard questions to Dr. Sadler.
Yeah, that would tie in with just war theory.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I've done some work actually on the argumentation that went into the war and evaluating the war. And a lot of people forget, and a lot of people made sort of rhetorical hay out of the fact that there was this big argument about weapons of mass destruction. He's developing weapons of mass destruction, and it turned out there weren't any. It also turned out that he had deliberately made it seem as if they did have some to try to either keep the neighbors at bay because he has some dangerous neighbors, or to try to, as a form of aggression himself, to try to keep them under. But the actual argument that was made for going to war had 3 points. One was weapons of mass destruction. The other was there was some sort of connection between Iraq and Al-Qaeda. And that one, very debatable. The other was that he was a tyrant and that he was committing a lot of human rights abuses and engaging in aggression against his neighbors. That was clearly true. And then when we uncovered all these documents afterwards, when we took over, we found that just confirmed that. Now the question then would be, okay, so what sort of force are you justified in using against a tyrant like that? And that's what we call just war theory. Myself, my personal feelings, I'm actually for armed intervention to back up UN mandates to prevent human rights abuses. So I'm actually I'm sort of a hawk on that. I'm actually for intervention in Sudan or in other places. And it's on the same sort of basis of this. Aggression can be justified if it's counter-aggression, if it's measured, if it's being used with proper motives. But there also has to be sort of a continuous process of ongoing reassessment. And again, an Aristotelian perspective would bring that. Because an Aristotelian perspective wouldn't say, you've justified it once, it's always okay. You'd have to keep on evaluating the context of it. And the same thing would go, to bring us back to flaming, the same thing would have to go, let's say you had a forum, and you had a person who was continually being a problem. And it wasn't one of these sorts of forums where they kick them out and you're done. You wouldn't want to say, well, they're an aggressor, so therefore you can do anything you like to them. Because, there's a possibility that they will actually change over time. So you'd have to reevaluate the strategy of counter-aggression, counter-verbal aggression towards them over time as well, if you were an Aristotelian reasoner. There's other moral theories that would say,